Steve Zaitchik with the LA Times, here with the cast of the much anticipated Stoker, Goode, Mia Wasikowska, and of course Nicole Kidman. Premiere of the film here at the Sundance Film Festival, one of the most anticipated movies here at the festival, with Chan-wook Park, the Korean auteur, making his directorial debut.
You know, I've often wondered why it is we have children. And the conclusion I've come to is we want someone to get it right this time. But not me. Personally speaking, I can't wait to watch life tear you apart. Even though we had the translator there, after a period of time, you sort of start to just know you get him and you get what he's after, and therefore the words become irrelevant. I mean, occasionally you need him to guide you, but a lot of times you can just communicate almost tacitly, you know, because you just look at him and you go, ah, I know what you want, I know what you want. And I think, you know, different directors, this film is not messy. This film is very, very concisely put together. And as an actor, that's wonderful to work within that guide.
One of the things that struck me about the film is just the tone that it strikes, because there's a real, without spoiling it for any of our viewers, there's a real sense of dread and some pretty macabre things that are happening. And Matthew, your character in particular, mysterious to say the least,
yes.
More grisly perhaps in certain moments.
Possibly.
I wondered how you found that balance between kind of doing creepy without going over the top or tilting it too much in a sort of caricature direction.
Well, luckily you have the director to help rein you in, but there's an element of, but it's one of the other great things, he's like a professor really, the director Park, because he did do a professorship in psychology, so there's an element of, yeah, he has a psychology degree, which I think is where he became slightly fascinated with Hitchcock and those kind of films originally. So there's an element of, like, whatever you're doing, you've got to try and find some semblance of the truth to it, and I suppose in some senses one of the big themes of the film is sort of, where does evil possibly come from, like like parenting and the idea of nature and nurture, and whether there's a I don't know, predisposition in the bloodline to do sort of naughty things.
Yeah, I just remember him saying to me, "Bad blood."
Yeah,
this film's about bad blood.
Bad blood. But
It's
also
just, it had a very strong visual connotation to it.
But also how things could spiral out of control. I mean, I think there's certainly for my character, I think he was born with some bad blood. But anyway, I don't want to go on too much about it. But there's like an innocence to him as well as something that's deeply macabre. So it's all quite three-dimensional, hopefully.
Yes. Well, it is, and just to remind people what this movie is about. It is about a family living in this kind of Gothic house. The father, your character's husband, passes away, and the mysterious uncle, in the form of your character, shows up. And I think one of the things that really makes this film work is Mia, your character is kind of the beating heart of this story. We're seeing it through her eyes. Is this kind of disaffected high school girl who's obviously has a close relationship with her uncle. I'm wondering kind of how you saw the character and how you kind of, again, struck a similar balance where you're obviously an innocent person trying to do her best, but there's a darker side as well.
Yeah, I kind of like how director Park talked about it sort of from the beginning in relation to my character India, and how he talked about it quite innocently being like a coming-of-age story for her, and he also talks about it in like a fairy tale kind of a way, which is fun because she is quite a dark character, or there's like a darkness to her, but he always really wanted to emphasize like a more innocent side of her as well. And I think that's obviously like a really interesting kind of mix for a character. But yeah, she's very like isolated and kind of introverted, and this is sort of her sexual awakening, and it just sort of comes,
so to speak,
you know, in the form of her uncle, which is less conventional.
You know, it's funny, and that's, I mean, to me, it's, as I was watching the film, I thought your character does kind of speak to certain archetypes of a high school girl who's coming of age, but it's through this kind of bizarro world mirror of an Asian auteur with some blood and brutality on his mind. I want to talk for a second about the themes of the film, but just quickly, Nicole, I thought I'd ask you, because you've been taking on some pretty adventurous roles lately. The Paperboy comes to mind. Saw that in Cannes, movie.
The weirdest thing was I did Paperboy literally just prior to this movie.
Is that right?
And as an actor, that's an amazing flip, you know. So I had 1 week off in between the two movies.
And Lee Daniels.
And I got to go and do Charlotte Bless and then come and do Evelyn. And, you know, you want diversity as an actor. I do. I want diversity because I get bored quickly and I have a sort of that kind of nature that wants to go and explore different things. So this was kind of I probably won't get two characters more diverse than these two.
Or directors.
I was going to say, Lee Daniels and Chan-wook Park, exactly the same working
but
methods,
it's great
I'm sure.
because, yeah. No, I mean, they really are the two extremes. And that's great, you know, that's sort of what I seek out. So it results in weird, odd films, which I'm kind of into, so. Having
done these now, is it something you want to continue doing, just kind of pushing in these kind of really unconventional directions?
I mean, I just kind of react spontaneously to things. I suppose I'm not that premeditated in what I'm looking for. I just kind of, I read something and I respond, and, you know, who knows. So I just did Grace Kelly, which is obviously very different to this, with a French director, which I loved, Olivier Dahan. So that's, and then I'm going to go and do something in England, so a thriller. I love thrillers.
Those are fun. I'm trying to imagine Chan-wook Park doing a Grace
But
Kelly
I watched this actually last night in the cinema.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, go.
And I just sat there and I went, oh, it's so beautiful to watch. I mean, an exquisitely crafted film, because I was like absolutely in awe of his, the way in which he's crafted this movie. And as you know, people that love film, and which is us, and you sit there and you go, oh, what it takes to do this kind of film is, I mean, it's really, really hard, and you need an enormous imagination, but you need an enormous discipline, and I think that's what this film is sort of.
But also we have got the most wonderful partnership in the cinema of Chung-hoon, who is just the sweetest guy. He's so funny, but it's so lovely to watch that relationship, because you can't do anything without a good DOP. Yeah.
No, and there's like the scene where you're brushing my hair. Oh, yeah. See, a lot of the film you don't see as an actor. You're, you know, you're in it as the actor, and you're part of his, what I call his one of his paint colors. And so to then sit back and watch it and see it, I mean, I was very.
And that's also how meticulous they are, because it's stuff that they plan together, isn't it?
Yeah,
Pre-shooting,
and
you just go,
stuff, so.
where did you come up with that idea?
Yeah. No, there's something very painterly about it, and I'm interested, Nicole, you were saying too, the idea that you're sitting there watching it, and it really does have this kind of gloomy, kind of doom and gloom feeling to it. The reaction, of course, to something like this is also going to be, I think, inevitably polarized. I'm wondering what either of you, and even just looking at social media last night, the reviews, it's a movie that's designed, I think, to provoke a reaction, and I'm wondering what you're bracing yourselves for, because this is not like doing a more mainstream commercial film where you kind of know where people are going to land on it. Here, I think people will be, in a good way, all over the map, and I'm just wondering what you're expecting from that.
I'm used to that. Me too. I actually, I mean, I rarely do, as I've said, I rarely done a film.
I'm kind of wondering whether it's like that. Sorry, I just talked all over you.
Please talk all over me. I talk garbage 90% of the time. So.
Well, you wonder if it's like, you know, I think I saw something or heard something this morning, and it seemed to be that they didn't really take into account the filmmaking itself. It was like, is it just going to be a reaction of I hate violence on screen, or what was its point, and things, or whether they can sort of step back and go, well, it wasn't to my taste, but I can marvel at how much work went into it. I don't know, so I'm kind of interested to see whether we're just going to get bitch slapped. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, what's your...
I think that those are sort of the best kind of films when you don't really know exactly what to expect, and when I don't know, when it sort of divides people. I think that's probably kind of a healthy thing. But I don't know, I'm curious to see how it's received.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you have the Sundance premiere, and then you guys are coming out, I should tell people, in just at the start of March. So we'll know quickly. Before we wrap, Matthew, you make a good point when you talk about the violence, and I was just talking to Director Park about this, that obviously it's a debate we're having now because of unfortunate tragedies in the real world, and I think some people then try to kind of pin that on movies. This is a movie that obviously there's no gunplay in it, but it does deal with some pretty violent acts. I'm wondering.
But it certainly brings up the idea of premeditation, and I mean, certainly I don't want to get into talking about gun crime, but I mean, because you know, it's a big discussion. But ultimately, certainly, if you're going to own a handgun, you should probably have some sort of psychoanalysis. Not as in you're mad to do it, but like possibly this person could be slightly mad. But anyway, there's no guns in this part. Well, there's a gun actually. At the end. I don't know, but it's going to provoke that discussion, frankly. But I mean, it's just, I know that I'm going to go and watch a film, and I'm not going to come out of it and go and kill someone. I don't know. Maybe it's more cathartic for me. It's a big discussion. And
Nicole, I know we have very little time left, but I just wondered if you. This is a film that deals with violence, but to me it's done in the most artful, thoughtful way, and obviously there are different kinds of violent films that are maybe more exploitative. I wondered how you...
I don't feel it's exploitative. I mean, I really don't, so that's just me, but I'm also not into homogenizing our films. I'm not into censorship, so that's just where I stand on art.
Yeah, well, and they've been great.
But I'm certainly into in other areas. I mean, I think things need to be addressed, but in terms of our cinema, yeah, I think it's very dangerous once you start to censor cinema.
It'd be like censoring the press. And on that bombshell.
Yeah, I was going to say we should. Will that get
But
cut out?
But I believe in ratings. I do think there's certain films that are not appropriate, but for certain ages. But in terms of what we're allowed and not allowed to see, I think, I'm a supporter of not what I call homogenizing our cinema or our art.
Well, that is a good, very pro First Amendment note to end on. So with that, I will thank Matthew, Mia, and Nicole for being with us, and look forward to seeing more reaction to the film.
Thanks very much.